Let me tell you a story. It's a story of a man who is usually portrayed as loading himself up with auras or equipment to attack opponents directly. But this isn't always true. One day Rafik learned a trick from a friendly Boggle, and after that he would rarely attack. Indeed, he would have a smaller, evasive creature attack. These small creatures would be strengthened by him as well as some enchantments and equipment. Doing this made him less of a target and the strategy less vulnerable to being forced to sacrifice a creature. Since most of his spells needed little mana and many of his favored attackers required only 1 to 2 mana, he would often play no mana ramp spells before casting his first creature. Sometimes, though, he would lead off with a wild growth, burgeoning Soul Ring or Carpet of Flowers. This was usually because he had no castable 1-mana creatures. Casting creatures early let the creature attack more times before an opponent would be able to remove them. The ideal spell was, of course, Birds of Paradise, which could both ramp mana and evade to deal damage once given some equipment or auras. The first spell Rafik would cast was usually an evasive creature, such as Looteril Core, Silhana Ledgewalker, Hidden Gorillas, Gingerbrute, Hushbringer, or Serra Ascendant. If no evasive creature was available, or if he felt the need to get more resources because he expected lots of creature removal, Rafik would cast an Enchantress-type creature or a Mystic Remora early. Once his first evasive creature was on the battlefield, he would often cast an enchantment or equipment for it. These would make the creature stronger, harder to destroy, provide Rafik with more resources when it would hit. The auras which would give Rafik more spells or mana when his creatures dealt damage were made doubly strong by the double strike from Rafik or extra attack from Finest Hour. This made these enchantments crucial as the battle progressed and his resources would run low. The battle would usually reach midpoint when Rafik either went to the battlefield himself or he would cast a Finest Hour enchantment. This would greatly escalate the threat any unblocked creature would deal to an opponent. If both Rafik and Finest Hour came out together, then 2 attacks from a creature that had double strike and gained 2 extra power on the first as well as second combat phase from Exalted could make even a harmless Birds of Paradise deal 12 damage with no other help. And if Rafik hit any opponent with Finest Hour on the field, he would often deal enough damage to kill them. Some evasive creatures that would be reasonable to cast early on were just as valuable, if not more so, mid-battle for their disruptive abilities. Recruiter of the Guard was often helpful in finding these as they were needed. Once he had built one of his creatures into a threat, Rafik would be protecting his creatures, neutralizing opponents' creatures, and disrupting opponents' plans. In addition to the disruptive creatures mentioned above, he also used a couple counterspells along with a substantial amount of removal for creatures, artifacts, enchantments, and graveyards. Rafik's strategy did not usually defend well against opposing armies, so he would frequently be in a race to deal the lethal blow with his opponents. And since there were multiple opponents, it was vital to make alliances with 1 or 2 of them so that he would not be perceived as an imminent threat or a profitable opponent to attack. When politics failed, a Spirit Link or Armadillo Cloak cast on an opponent's powerful creature would often allow Rafik to gain much needed life. It would also strongly discourage the opponent from attacking him with that enchanted creature, because Rafik would gain as much life as the creature dealt, at least as long as he didn't die to an attack from the creature first. Late in the battle, some cards were especially important. Thassa, God of the Sea, was vital because of her ability to push through a fatal attack once an opponent produced a flying creature that could block most of Rafik's creatures. The little immediate defense that Rafik did have against opponents' creatures came in the form of Parallax Wave or Sphere of Safety. Either of these on the battlefield could make him very hard to attack, and would encourage attacks against other opponents, which would in turn buy his own attackers more time to deal damage. And that is how Rafik would win battles with a bunch of small evasive creatures and many enchantments.